Hey crochet fans, Tasha here. Today we are talking about 3 ways to alleviate this nasty chain 3 gap that we get when we use a chain 3 as a stitch substitute for the double crochet. Now this also happens for stitches larger than a double crochet, as in the treble stitch or the double treble stitch. The taller the chain, the bigger the gap, and the more uglier your fabric is. So let's beautify it today and get rid of this gap. The first strategy is pretty simple. We're just going to do a chain 2 instead of a chain 3 and not use this as a stitch substitute. So I'm going to go into the very first stitch and do my double crochet. There you are. So an advantage of this is there is no gap. Disadvantage, it does leave a little extra bump on the outside. Depending on your project, this might be just fine if you're going to come back and put a border on that and disguise it. When you come to the end of the row in which you have used a chain 2, then you're going to work into the top of the last real double crochet and leave the chain 2 hanging off the side. We didn't use it as a substitute, so we don't work into it. So here I have 2 rows using just the chain 2 and no stitch substitute. The next strategy we're going to talk about is using a single crochet and a chain instead. So I'm going to flip my work and I am not going to chain up at all. I'm going to work into the very first stitch and just do a single crochet. And then to give me a little extra height, I'm just going to do a chain 1 right on top. You can see it gives, it fills in that gap. I'll just go ahead and do a double crochet. Now it's disguised pretty well in there, don't you think? You may like this strategy. When you get to the end of the row in which you have used the single crochet plus the chain 1, we are going to stitch into the top of it. Since we really did use this as a stitch substitute, we need to do our last stitch in the very top. Since the top is the chain 1, it should be pretty familiar if you've been used to the chain 3. So we'll just find 2 of the 3 parts that make up that top chain and do our double crochet. And there you have it. So now we have 2 rows in which we have used a single crochet plus the chain 1. And now our third option is actually my favorite. I prefer the look of it, but it does take some practice. I'm going to show you it first and then I will walk you through it. Ta-da! Okay, so I will walk you through what I just did. The first thing you want to do is draw up the loop that's on your hook to about the height of a double crochet or a treble crochet or whatever stitch you're working on. But in most cases I imagine it's going to be the double like I'm doing. So I pull it up to about the height of a double, and this you can kind of play around with depending on the type of yarn that you're using. I found that I have had to adjust this a bit. But what I do next is I just put my index finger on that loop so I hold it steady. And I'm going to kind of do like a faux yarn over where I'm going to rotate the head of the hook towards me and underneath. And notice I am not moving my index finger here. I'm keeping that steady because I don't want to lose the loop. Underneath and around. Now you can catch the yarn this way. I find I kind of do this because it's my habit. But if it's easier, just all you need to do is catch the yarn whichever way makes sense to you and bring that back up. And it looks like we have 2 loops here. And we're going to treat it like 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through both of those. There you are. There's even that diagonal yarn across the front of it that looks an awful lot like a double crochet. This is great for something in which is not going to have an edging and you're actually going to have these ends exposed. Oops, sorry, I knocked the camera. There you are, no gap. Now when you get to the end of the row and you're ready to work into the top of this stitch, it's actually called the no turning chain double crochet. Sorry, I didn't actually tell you the name of it. People may call it by a different name as well, but this is what I've always known it to be. Well, to go into the top of this stitch, there actually is a V. I don't know if you can see that, but what I tend to do is I go under the loop that's facing me first, and then I come around and I use the end of my hook and I just kind of push that over. But there's actually a V on the side there. So you secure it really nicely and finish off your double crochet. Alright, so let's compare. Down at the bottom we have traditional chain 3s with gaps. Then these 2 rows are the chain 2 that was not a stitch substitute. And then we have 2 rows in which we used a single crochet and a chain 1. Those sides are really nice and straight. And then we have the no turning chain double crochet. Again, really straight sides. So go ahead and play around with these strategies and choose your favorite. Thanks for joining me today. Happy crocheting!